Hey, good morning, ladies and gents. Welcome back to Algorithms episode 2.1. So, a little bit of a trick there. So, in 2.1, we're going to continue in our kind of vein of slightly simpler, slightly easier algorithms. And this one is actually very interesting. This one has a lot of concepts rolled into a single concept, and it's called debounce. So, what is debounce? Debounce is basically calling a function after a certain delay. So basically, you could be hitting a function multiple times, and it's not going to run until the last time that you've hit the function and a certain delay after that. So basically, any hit of the function during the delay time will actually reset the timer, and the timer will only fire and run the function after the delay has fully run its course. A good example of that is actually Google autocomplete, and we can actually try this out. This is actually a good idea. You can see as I'm typing, nothing's happening. After I stop typing, then I get my results. Again, as I start typing, nothing's happening, then I get my results. So that's what this concept is all about. That's what debounce actually does. So what does it actually look like? How do we write it? What is debounce? So let's take a quick look into the console, and what we're going to see is that debounce is basically a function that accepts two parameters, which is an action or another function that you want to debounce, and then the time interval that you want it to be debounced for. Again, the concept here is, let's just say you're hitting an API, you don't want to hit it too frequently, you want to give it a delay. So let's see what this actually looks like in code. So we're going to start defining our function, so we can say, regular function definition, debounce is going to accept the func and a delay. And here's where it gets pretty interesting, and we touch on our first interesting concept. The first interesting concept that we're going to touch is basically closure scope. So in closure scope, I'm able to take down a variable and maintain it in scope even when the outer function, and debounce is going to be the outer function around my inner function, that stays there even after the outer function has run its course and has been popped off the execution environment or the execution stack. It is akin to a class variable where it's available to the inner function anywhere where it runs. So if you're not very familiar with closure scope, I highly recommend that you read up on it, and I'll try to leave some links in the description. And what are we going to put in there? What are we going to put in our closure scope here? Well, we're going to put on a timer ID, and a timer ID is something that's actually returned by the setTimeout function. So not a lot of people know this, but setTimeout function actually returns something, and it returns a timer ID that refers to that specific setTimeout. And what you're able to do is run clear timeout, and it will clear out that timeout, and the function that was supposed to be triggered by the clear timeout once it reaches its course will not run. And we'll see a little bit more on that as we go along. So let's go ahead and declare that timer ID. So we'll only declare it here, we'll not actually set it to anything, just declare it. So again, it's set to undefined by default by JavaScript. And now we're going to create the inner function. So the inner function is the function that we're going to return, and it's going to be a debounced version of this func argument, the func function that we have in our debounce function. So we're going to go ahead and return a function, which is going to create our closure. And what are we going to do inside this function? So we're going to do something extremely simple. Like, you could mess around with a this keyword. You can take note of the this keyword in the outer function to maintain its keyword by saying, let self equals this. You can do a lot of different things with the this keyword, but we're not going to get into any of that. We're going to do something extremely simple. We're just going to say if we have this timer ID, then go ahead and clear timeout, and we'll give it this timer ID. Again, if this is not clear, please read up on the setTimeout concept on MDN, link in the description. And the second thing that we're going to do is we're going to actually say timer ID is equal to setTimeout, and we'll give it a lambda expression here. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to say func.apply. So what does apply mean? Apply takes in this keyword and an array of arguments. Now, why do we need an array of arguments? So let's just say you actually wanted to pass in some arguments into the function func, right? Let's just say we have like a say hello function that we're trying to debounce, and it takes in a name this function that we're returning here will actually, or needs to behave the same way that the function that gets passed in behaves. Okay? And because of that, we need to use this apply argument. So when this function gets called with certain arguments, we want to control its this keyword, and initially we'll just say this, right? So func will be called with this keyword of this function. So the function we're returning will act as if it was the func that was passed in. That's how it will act. It will perform the same exact job. It'll just be debounced. And then, of course, we'll also give it an array of arguments. What kind of arguments are we going to give it? Well, you say, okay, well, there's no arguments being passed into here. And I say, well, you still can. In JavaScript, I could still pass parameters in there. And how do I keep track of them? Well, it's this magical arguments array. So arguments is actually not an array. It's an array-like object inside of JavaScript. And the way that we're going to pass it in is using this ES6 spread syntax, and we're going to go ahead and give it arguments. What is this going to do is it's going to run array.slice on the original arguments, create a new copy of arguments that will actually be an array and can be used as an array, etc. And so when the original function func here runs, it'll receive this keyword created by the function we're returning, as well as the arguments. Whatever arguments were passed into this function will be passed in to the original func that we defined there. And then, of course, the second thing that the setTimeout function is going to take, of course, this is their first argument, which is the lambda expression, and the second argument is the delay. Delay here. Okay. Once we're done with that, that's it. There's really nothing else that we need to do, and that's going to be our debounce function. Second thing, let's now test it out. Let's see. So we'll say function, say hello, and let's just say we actually take a name as an argument. And we're going to say, okay, console.log. We'll use this new like string interpolation syntax. We'll say hello name. And that's all of this function is going to do. And then we're going to say like let debounced say hello equals debounce. We'll pass in the function, say hello, and we'll pass in a 3000 millisecond delay. And then we're going to go ahead and call debounced, say hello. And we'll pass in a string Jeremy into the function. And we're going to call it once, twice, 3 times. And then it runs. So you can see it ran after a 3000 millisecond delay. And that is the magic of debounce. Hope you learned something today. Please check out all the links in the descriptions. Please sign up, subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends, and yeah, come back and catch me in some more videos. Thanks a lot.